Hello, my name is Faye and I like to read post-apocalyptic books. I thought I'd do some reviews concentrating on books that fall into genres that sort of are my wheelhouse, my comfort zone, my preferred picks, the ones I turn to and I know I'm going to have a good time. The last one I read that falls into the post-apocalyptic genre is The Day of the Triffids by John Wyndham. I was really eager to read this because it's a really early one. That represents this kind of genre. This was first published in 1951 and immediately I was curious whether it would be dated or not, but suffice it to say, I really enjoyed it nevertheless, reading it this year. This story begins with our main protagonist, Bill, waking up in hospital after having had his eyes bandaged due to surgery that he needed. And so he comes to, and after watching a comet shower the previous night, everyone around him has lost their sight. They've all fallen blind. So he navigates in this new world as he wakes up to it in London. The title, not misleadingly, that's not true, but the other side of the story are the Triffids. These three-legged plants have been shipped over from the Soviet Union, harvested in vast numbers because they produce valuable oils, and they are flesh-eating animals. But turns out that they're a bit more savage and grueling than the ones that we are used to. They can actually strike and sting their prey with a poison, hurting them, and then they sort of lurk in waiting until they can eat the corpse. So we have London, where almost everyone has fallen blind, and these Triffids, these plants that don't rely on their sight and hence have a bit of an edge. And Bill navigates through London trying to figure out what's happened, the scope of what's happened, and then eventually what he's going to do. And it's a really inventive, but at the same time, I think, realistic depiction of what would happen almost sort of from hour to hour over the course of a few days. How reliant we are on our sight, and how some individuals will sort of conquer their limitations and push through anyway. A few sighted individuals sort of start writing the story almost, and that's also a weird thought that comes up. What's the worth of a person? Which skill set should they bring to be valuable members of a society? I'm going to put this down. And also, Bill, the main character, being a biologist, also brings a really unique, different perspective to the problem of the Triffids. He is worried that they will be a huge threat before any other of the characters worry about that. But then his view as a biologist is contrasted with the views of, there's a sociologist, for instance, in the book, who says that all the rules and morals that we've learned as a society have ceased to exist or have lost any importance because the society that we knew from one day to the other has also perished. And that, again, is contrast with a sort of more humanistic or religious view of these morals being important. There's the discussion of, how will we survive and repopulate? That might not work if there's just one man to one woman, if so few of the people have survived. So that was actually really quite intriguing, and that I didn't find dated at all. Dated perhaps was maybe this antithesis between like the Soviet Union on the one side being like the ones that brought in the bad seed, quite literally, in this story, and a lot of characters in the book holding out hope for the Americans that are sure to come save them. That was quite amusing. I feel like that is sort of very stereotypical in stories of that time and a bit more nuanced today, or if it's not nuanced, then at least it's almost satirical. So that was interesting. But still, one of the elements of the story I think ring true today still, maybe even more so, which is that we kind of have lost basic survival skills, even in the setting of the 50s, in which The Day of the Triffids plays. people don't really know how to grow food, harvest food, take care of livestock. They don't really know how they're going to survive without electricity. And if anything, we've become more reliant on those luxuries and possibly, I guess, less knowledgeable of how we would knuckle down and do those things today. I certainly don't know how I would learn how to grow things without the internet. I would Google it. So yeah, I really liked The Day of the Triffids. I thought it was really cool. It's a fast-paced plot. It's very unpretentious somehow. It's stated in a way how sort of men and women and the role of men and women is discussed, but on the other hand, there are also very forward-thinking individuals in the book. So I actually didn't find that sort of icky to read as a woman. I actually thought it was kind of cool that at that time there were so many different views already on discussions of gender and capabilities and tasks of the two genders. So yeah, I totally recommend it if you're into, I don't even know how to call the genre, post-apocalyptic reads. I really like them. I thought to round it up, I'd mention 3 other ones that I read that all have things in common with this storyline, but also other unique selling points, just if you happen to have read The Day of the Triffids and now you want more. 2 of which I have in physical form, and they've both been very popular. The one that I have here is The Girl with All the Gifts by M.R. Carey. I've picked this one because, yes, there is a sort of post-apocalyptic setting following a small troupe of people around one girl sort of fighting their way through a disaster-ridden world. The reason why I think this is kind of a fun suggestion is because this element of like dangerous plants kind of also plays a role in this one. Not in a straightforward manner, but I thought the feel was quite similar in describing sometimes how they had to sort of forage for food and watch out for other tribes. And I just also really enjoyed this one. This is a bit more of a spooky recommendation. Then a vastly popular one, so I will only briefly touch on it, is of course Station 11. I feel like everyone and their dad, I recommend this to my dad, have read this. This is a bit more of a sort of modern punky post-apocalyptic read, I'd say. Something like 99 point a lot of people die suddenly after some virus breaks loose, I think I remember. And again, we follow a few individual survivors and how their stories interlapped. The structure of the story is really cool. There's some like foreshadowing, which then links up with other troops, and there's Shakespearean theatre that travels around meeting different people. So this is just a more humorous one, I felt. And then the last one I don't have in a physical copy. I read that on my Kindle, but that is Nod by Adrian Barnes. In this book, from one day to the other, again, as in with The Day of the Triffids, now people don't lose their sight, but almost everyone has lost the ability to sleep. They can't even nap. And this, I thought, was a really grueling recollection of what that does to the mind and how you start to envy others who can sleep, because there are a few select that can. Again, our main character can. There are passages that are a bit slow moving, so you have to be invested and interested in just exploring that idea. And I did think that idea was interesting enough to push me through some of these sort of wordy, slightly more pretentious bits. So all of these books I thought were worth my time. The Day of the Triffids, however, I thought was actually one of the coolest, and just really quite nice to read a book that is old, but I thought stood the mark of time. It still was really, really entertaining, and I'd recommend it to all of you guys. This is John Wyndham's possibly best known novel, but he's written many more, so I think I might go forage into those and explore some more. Let me know what your favourite post-apocalyptic book is. I'm always eager to read more. There's just something really fascinating about exploring what could go wrong and also how we could brave those things. I'll talk to you very soon. Goodbye.